who essentially leeches off your spirit to survive. And that's a very real thing, by the way. A lot of people today don't believe that spirit or aura, as it could maybe more accurately be called, so even though it's called more. Anyway, spirit, a lot of people don't believe it's real, but it is. It's just as much a part of our being as our bodies. We need it to survive. So then, certain people, if they're deficient in spirit because of some trauma, ill health, whatever, they'll leech off of other people's spirit in order to sustain themselves. And what that usually looks like is it could either be putting the other person down or demanding the other person to exert a lot of their energy. So when that's done to sustain, um, when someone does that to another person to sustain themselves, that's known as a spiritual vampire. And that's a very deep topic. I'll talk about that eventually. In fact, I'm gonna give a lecture on all of this. Y'all are getting trailers basically for all these lectures I'm gonna give. But anyway, a spiritual vampire can take many forms, but one characteristic of a spiritual vampire, in my opinion, is that the goal is generally not to completely destroy the person they're leeching off of. They do harm them, but they don't want to destroy them because they need that continued source of spirit from that person. And also, in many cases, spiritual vampires is another characteristic. Aren't doing what they're doing intentionally. They can be doing it subconsciously. Um, so they don't necessarily mean harm even if they cause it. But a spiritual crocodile like Kevin Samuels, unlike a spiritual vampire, wants to completely destroy the person they're dealing with. Like, you know how a crocodile just waits. Let's do a comparison between a vampire bat and a crocodile, right? So a vampire bat, if any of you know how vampire bats work, they'll go up to a large mammal and they'll suck some of its blood, but they won't kill that animal. They'll keep going back to that animal to suck the blood. Not good for that animal, but the animal's not dead, right? A crocodile will lie in wait and then rise up out of the water, and whatever it got in its jaws, that thing is gone. Bam! Completely eaten, just completely destroyed, consumed. Well, Kevin Samuels here, he doesn't want this woman to go on. He's destroying her because if he wanted her to go on, he'd be giving her some constructive criticism or some reason to come back, something. He just wants this lady's spirit dead. He wants her gone, destroyed, right? And he destroys her spirit and consumes it for himself. So he's what I call a spiritual crocodile. And, anyone like that, you just mean people, harm. And you're just a bad influence and a bad actor. Um, so yeah, and I think it's really troubling that a man like this has become so popular from doing things like this to particularly black women. I mean, to be fair, he does it to all the black men he encounters as well, but it's just because he's on YouTube and YouTube has more men than women, it's more lucrative for him to destroy women in public than men in public. And then, of course, because anti-blackness is everywhere, if he gives an anti-black taint, he can make money. So part of this is his business strategy, and part of it is the man himself. I think he's also just a coon. So those two things come together, and you get terrible things like this. But anyway.
I'm taking it in, but
Okay, but you're not accepting the fact that, okay, average looking women, average looking woman who's older, average looking older woman with a 13-year-old son, average looking woman with a 13-year-old son with a sketchy baby daddy. This gets worse every time I say something. And now you're asking for a man who's in the top 10% of men. You don't qualify for one. And you're making, I mean, I don't want to have to go there, but when you put in all these other factors, why can't you just get a man that's an average guy?
sometimes I feel like in order to fully submit, I have to feel like he's in
Well, then
control.
you're gonna die alone. How about that? Let me just cut to the chase, ma'am.
And there it is. Even part that might be worse, telling her that she's gonna die alone. Because again, he hasn't even collected enough information to really even make a full judgment on her situation in the first place, in my opinion. Because most of the time when she's tried to go in depth on her thoughts and what she's been experiencing, he just cuts her off, and he doesn't ask questions to get more of that information out. He just wants to pick at certain things he can use to destroy her. But then also, if you look at the larger social context, right, because globally, right, black people are at war with Eurasians. They're trying to kill us. Because of the way in which they wage wars, created gender imbalance, right? Because they killed more men than women, right? And then on top of that, polygamy, and I guess this non-monogamy in general, has been denormalized as a practice among black people. So then, in general, in most places, there are some exceptions in certain parts of the world, but for the most part, mandatory monogamy is the norm. So what does that mean? If you have more men, or if you have more women than men, and then the women and men are only allowed to pair monogamously, then you end up with a surplus of women who have no partner. And these people have a very hard time finding a partner. And then tack on top of that a lot of the racist beauty standards, which Kevin Samuels, by the way, uses to judge women out of 10. By the way, another thing is this man always acts like black women being not a size 1 makes them unattractive to men. Like, not white men, black men in general. I mean, everyone's different. Black men in general like them a little thicker. I'm not talking like obese, but like you don't have to be a size 0. In fact, you're a size 0, less likely to be attracted to black men. So I don't, and we know black women tend to have more like wider hips and things. So I mean, it works out. But that's again, that in itself is a deeper topic. Long story short, the standards, they just don't make any sense, both practically and then also in terms of what we should aspire towards. But anyway, because of those racist beauty standards I'm talking about, then unfortunately, a lot of black women have difficulty being found attractive by men, so that further exasperates the problem. And none of this is the fault